So let's get started with Packet Tracer Activity 6413 and look at configuring our initial router settings. So we have a router and a PC here. So I'm going to connect my router to my PC. So I'm going to make sure I'm on my connections, and I'm going to choose a console connection. I'm going to click on PCA and plug it into my RS-232C port. Click on my router and plug it into my console port. So now I can open up my PC. I can go to my desktop and terminal, and remember the default settings for terminal connections to Cisco devices are 9600, 8, and 1. So that's perfect. We're going to connect. And here Packet Tracer actually lies to you. You'll see this whole boot up process. In reality, when you connect to a device using a terminal and a console config like this, it will give you nothing until you hit enter. So if you connect and you have a blank screen, just hit enter a couple of times and you should see some prompts come up, or depending on how it's configured, if there's no configuration on it and this is the first time you've connected, it may pop up and ask if you want to do an initial config dialog, but you should get some response to it. All right, so let's take a look. Let's start by going to privileged exec mode. So we're going to type enable, and that takes us to privileged exec mode. And we know because we have a little hashtag instead of the little greater than sign. So that's how we know we're in privileged exec mode. And let's do a show run to see what our current running config is. And you'll see here we have hostname router, and here you're going to see all of our interfaces and our console and our line configs, our VTY configs. So it's a basic, nothing has been configured on this thing yet, configuration. So as we walk through this configuration, this is going to be very, very, very similar to a switch configuration because basically they're in the same OS, they just have different features. One other thing I just saw, they want us to do a show start or show startup dash config. And it pops up and says, yep, we don't have one yet. Well, it's because we, haven't configured anything yet. So let's walk through a base configuration. We're just going to do some initial settings here. So I'm going to go to config T, and I'm going to start by setting the host name to R1. So that's what that host R1 does. And you'll see that takes effect immediately, and our prompt changes to R1 config. So we're just going to walk down these, even though they're not in logical order, we're just going to walk through them. So I'm going to do line con 0, and we're going to set a password of let me in. And remember that doesn't take into effect until we do a login, which forces a login on it. We'll set our privileged exec mode, and it's going to have us do unencrypted and encrypted, and remember that's not best practice. We should only do the encrypted, but Cisco's going to have us do it just so we know that we can. So it's going to be enable password Cisco, and then the encrypted one is enable secret, and that's got to be different, so it's going to be it's a secret. Now I want you to notice something here. I was in config mode when I did the enable password Cisco. Well, enable password Cisco is not a line config command. It's a global config command. Well, what happened when I did that is it kicked me out from line config to global config. Basically, it recognized what I was doing and then took me to the correct mode in order to execute it. Okay, so we've set our passwords, and then we're going to encrypt all plain text passwords, which is basically anything except the secret password. And that we encrypt with service password dash encryption. And you actually can shorten that a little bit, but I went ahead and did the whole thing just so you can see, the whole thing. So we have our password encryption service, and then last but not least, we're going to set a message of the day banner. So it's banner, MOTD, and we have to start with a character, and it'll be the same character we end with. So I'm going to use quotation marks. And it's A-U-T-H-O-R-I-Z. Unauthorized access is strictly I cannot type today. Unauthorized access is strictly prohibited. Okay. And then we are going to save our config. So we're going to do copy, run, start. Oops, that I have to exit out for. copy, run, start. Okay, that should get everything saved for us. Now, we want to check and see if it works, so I'm going to exit out. And now when I hit return to get started, it should prompt me for a password. Let me in. And then when I go to privilege exec mode, it should prompt me for a password again, which is it's a secret. All right, bonus. Down here at the bottom, we've saved the configuration. Bonus, we can save this to flash. Now the startup config is always saved to the NVRAM. And that's just where the boot process is going to look for it every single time. So now if I do a show start, it's going to show me my whole startup configuration. So I can store things on the flash file system as well. So we do show flash, and we're going to see here the operating system right here, and then a couple of support files for it. Now I can use this to make a backup copy of my config. So copy run start, copy is running config to startup config, right? If I do a copy run and I give it a name, backup dash config, I have to tell it to go to flash first. Flash colon backup dash config. See if Packet Tracer supports it. No, Packet Tracer is going to make me do this in 2 pieces. Copy run flash and then call it backup dash config. Fine. If Packet Tracer is going to make me do it in 2 pieces, I'll do it in 2 pieces. All right, there we go. Now if I do a show flash, we're going to see backup config. And the way we would return this, now this is not going to work in Packet Tracer, but if I copy backup dash config to run, then it's going to find my backup config file and restore it to my running configuration. Now I say that won't work. Packet Tracer doesn't actually support that, but on a physical device, this is how you would do it. Okay, we've been through an initial router configuration setup.